once again, back once again, back once again, back once again, back once again with a beat. Let the bass kick.
Wisdom is good for all areas of our lives, and that is what we try to cover on the Wisdom in All Things podcast. We look at wisdom as it applies to our minds, bodies, and souls. And for more resources on this, be sure to stop by wisdominallthings.com. Today's episode, Better Instincts from Good Decision Making. There's no free way to making a good decision. Here's a quote from Mark Twain. He says, good decisions come from experience. Experience comes from making bad decisions. Let's look a little bit further at the art of instinct. No doubt there is little pain on the path to good decision making. When we skirt the necessary upfront time it may take to get all the facts and then lean on weak instincts to make haste, we make it unnecessarily painful. Instincts can be very helpful if they are properly informed. After all, don't we often say that your first instinct is usually right and intuition doesn't lie? I'm familiar with going with your gut. This art was something I became aware of early on in my nearly 15 years in radio. Success in radio is all about increasing listeners and listening. The better the mix of music, the better chance you have of attracting and keeping listeners. Doing so meant an increase in ratings, which increased the rate card, which led to increased revenue. But in order to see that success, you needed to be able to pick the hits, the kinds of songs people wanted to listen to. You were limited by time, because there's only 60 minutes in an hour, and it's still the case actually, and far too many songs to pick from. To this day, radio struggles to get accurate and or complete data on listeners and their preferences. So what is a music programmer to do when they don't necessarily have the science? You develop instincts. You learn to piece together the slices and shards of information to make the best decision possible. Those in the radio industry did that well, developed the gift of what they called the golden gut. They were so connected to their audience and their station, they could pick the hits and pull in the listeners and listening to make their station successful. Which is to say, the gut is not something you're born with. It requires the training that only experience can provide. Seth Godin says, the world is a lot more complex than our gut is likely to comprehend, at least without training. Train your gut, get better instincts. I like to think of instinct as being a balance of the art and science of decision-making. The art comes with experience, and the science begins with the right decision-making process and can be refined to allow you to make the best decision possible in the least amount of time. So let's talk about decision analysis and a good heuristic. I've been wading through some courses on Coursera recently, and if you're not familiar, Coursera offers courses taught by college professors that you can audit for free. And one of my classes focuses on decision-making. It's a vital skill to possess regardless of your level of influence or stage in life. We don't always have the time or the need for more involved decision-making analysis, but Seth Godin makes a good point about improving instincts. By having a solid decision-making process and reducing subjectivism, we can increase accuracy when making a decision. Sounds pretty straightforward. In his Foundations of Everyday Leadership track, Gregory Northcraft, professor of business administration at the College of Business, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, provides a framework for good decision-making. Essentially, there are three components involved in making decisions: actions or options. What are your available options? What are the if-then statements that will reveal possible actions to take? Secondly, uncertainty, probabilities. What do you do about what you don't know? Where's your understanding the weakest? Are there people or processes that can help you alleviate uncertainty? And then thirdly, outcomes or goals. What is it that you need to achieve? What are acceptable, even desirable outcomes? When we care to make a good decision, we're more concerned about selecting the best available options to accomplish our goal or desired outcome. However, uncertainty complicates this process. While we may have a good idea about the actions or options that we need to consider to accomplish our specific goals, our bias and the subjectivity of the uncertainty can delay and even derail us from reaching our destination. So what we need to do is hone our heuristic. Our decision analysis needs to properly navigate uncertainty in order to select the best action or options. To flesh out subjectivity and our bias, we need to take a look at our heuristic. Heuristics are those cognitive shortcuts that help us fill in the blanks when there's too little information and limits our search when there's too much. How are we cheating ourselves out of the facts by assuming or concluding too quickly? Two common biases are anchoring and framing. Anchoring means being influenced by a reference number when estimating. We tend to rely too heavily on the first reference we come across. For instance, if I asked you if Mount Everest is higher or lower than 20,000 feet, you'd have 20,000 feet as a reference that will influence your response. While framing is being influenced by whether the choice is presented in terms of losses or gains. It has to do with risk. We tend to be risk-averse to protect gains or risk-seeking to prevent losses. Developing a more thorough or valid heuristic refines our decision-making process and over time will improve our instincts. So better decision-making will become more habitual and maybe spare us a few of those bumps and bruises on the path to making good decisions. This is the Wisdom in All Things podcast. It's a journey that is designed to help you integrate wisdom into all areas of your life. Listen to more podcasts and read other articles at wisdominallthings.com.